Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Whilst we are waiting, let's say the last two panel members to join, could I please suggest, let's say, that you look at the Slido tool and make a picture of this QR code, because there's going to be questions which we're going to ask to you at a later stage into the session, and then you will see that there are pre-recorded questions for which you would have to make a selection yourself. So may I kindly ask you to take a look at to put this one into your mobile, so that we can see also at a later stage the results. And there we've got Gustavo, and there we've got Veronica.
I
Excellent.
think we have Gustavo and Veronica here. Thank you very much. It's now my great pleasure to introduce the next session that is focusing on space technology for emerging countries, and it has been organized by the IEF Committee on Liaison with International Organizations and Developing Nations, the Client Committee. And I would like to introduce the moderator of this session, Peter van Beekhuizen, Treasurer, Stichting Space Professionals Foundation, and also Vice Chair of the IEF Client. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christian. So let's say I've got the pleasure to introduce here our panel members, and we're going to start the session by making a short introduction by each of them. And then you will see the names appearing. So we start with Veronica Gomez Ricorte from Ecuador. She is the Regional Integration Director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the floor is yours, Veronica.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good morning to everyone. I will try to do this today in English. I just wanted to comment about my country, and I think I have 3 minutes, right?
2 or 3 minutes.
Well, I would like to say that Ecuador, as a member of the United Nations, has ratified 3 of 5 treaties related to space, and it has been a member of COPUOS since 1997. And also has actively participated in its sessions, including as president on 2 occasions. We particularly supported the process building the Space 23rd Agenda, and also the negotiations of the guidelines for long-term sustainability of space activities. One of the issues that my country has historically supported within the framework of COPUOS is the inclusion of the agenda in the agenda item of examination of the physical nature of technical attributes of geostationary orbits and its applications. Our national constitution refers to the orbit regarding the exercise of sovereign rights and strategic relevance for the development, communications, and information. For my country, being present and the COPUOS has translated in possibilities of cooperation from UNOSA and other UN members, such as improving knowledge for international space law and implementation of regulatory frameworks. We have also received support in training of space weather and risk management through the UN SPIDER. In 2016, satellite images were received free of charge from UNOSA before and after the 7.8 earthquake that in Manabí province. And among others, we are following with interest the cooperation with Japan through the KiboQ initiative. I wanted to mention this issue to put in context that although we do not have a space agency, we remain interested and aware of the importance of having institutions and technology. From the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are supporting the Ecuadorian Air Force to rebuild the Space Institute, and I hope that this process will conclude in the medium term. For these reasons, Ecuador has strongly supported the creation of Latin America and the Caribbean Space Agency. We are convinced that regional cooperation can also help us to strengthen our national capacities. It will also offer us the unique opportunity to generate joint programs and projects. On the other hand, I would like to comment that at the national level, we have made progress in addressing the fundamental gaps related to innovation, which are low coordination and collaboration between university, a few elements for the development of a culture of innovation between academia and business, low interest in research and development by companies and universities, few incentives of intellectual protections and low compliance control, and limited resources of public funding. Three important instruments have been put in effect in the last year to try to change this scenario. Now we have our organic law of entrepreneurship and innovation, the national strategy for competitiveness, entrepreneurship and innovation, and a public policy for facilitation of trade, production, the simplification of procedures, and competitiveness agenda. I'm sorry. Although there is still no specific regulation for startup companies in the space domain, the new regulations will facilitate and promote innovation and technological development, implementing new financing modalities and strengthening the ecosystem of the entrepreneur. We hope this also helps us to change the focus of business and expand it. According to the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, Ecuador is the second country with the highest rate of early entrepreneurial activity in the region, 36.2%. In other words, there's a lot of interest, and we have to take advantage of this. I think I'm on time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Veronica. You must be very proud to have a conference like this in your country. Yeah. Then we continue to the next one, Fuad Azanov. Fuad is the Vice Chairman of the Cosmos Space Agency, and he is going to inform us about the highlights and the important issues from the perspective of his organization.
Hello to everybody. Thank you very much for attending this panel session. So I believe you have seen already the slides a couple of times, so I will try to give you some overview and on our future plans, and especially how important the space technology is specifically for emerging countries. So Cosmos, initially we started as a commercial organization. The only idea was just to generate revenues and to raise awareness in the market and also develop the applications. So we managed to become very successful in Azerbaijan and also in the region. Actually from that experience, we realized that it is very much important to be managing the process of the development of space technology in the country. And it is extremely important for emerging space nations because we all know that in most of the cases getting space technologies can be very complicated and not all nations have access to that. Especially in the case of Azerbaijan, we don't have many years of experience of academic researchers and R&D. That's why the idea was to develop the state program, since we are a public organization and we have the support of the government. So having the state program in place was the accelerator for developing the space technology in country. And currently we are trying to move this process forward. And we believe that in the modern times where we are living in the new space era, where the technologies are not that unreachable as they used to be before. So space is not anymore the conservative, it's not a conservative area where only limited number of participants and nations can be actively involved. I think that I believe that for many emerging nations, it is very much important to get the support from the space agencies in those countries and the governments to move forward with the real state program, and I believe that the beneficiaries of that program would be all the participants, so the industry, the academic institutions, and actually the society itself. At the end of the day, we all benefit from space applications, everybody, but not everybody is aware about that. So raising awareness is also extremely important. Yeah, so I think we are short in time, but I believe we'll be able to address the questions and get deeper into the topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And let's say what is very important, let's say the next year's IAC conference is going to be held in the beautiful city of Baku in Azerbaijan, and then we will learn much more about all the developments in your agency. Thank you very much. Then we go to the next one, which is Danilo. Danilo Sakai works for the Brazilian Space Agency, and he is there the senior space project analyst. The floor is yours.
Oh, okay, perfect. And do we have the oh, okay, thank you. So for those of you who were here yesterday, I'm going to be using the same slides, but a whole new different content. We are concentrating a lot more on how do we develop our technology in Brazil. Most of our technology is developed in-house, but that doesn't mean we don't have international collaboration and cooperation. So as it was said before, also by my colleagues, we have national institutes of research, military technological institutes, as well as a growing industry, but it's still growing and it's in its first stages. So here you can have an overview of what we have developed up to date. Our rocket development, it started with collaboration with the United States, for example, and now it continues in collaboration with Germany and other countries, as well as for our satellites. We have searched for help and for training with more experienced and more traditional space programs. And that has led us to our autonomy in building rockets, satellites, and our launch centers. So now focusing on the future, we notice some differences. For example, our industry is growing, but like I said, it's still very small, and the initiatives are small. So if we only do huge projects, they will work once every 2 or 3 years, and eventually some of these companies, they die with the lack of work between projects. So now we are focusing also on small projects like nanosats, and projects like nanosats, they are very useful as well for technology development, for validation, space validation in flight and everything. So we are opening our network and trying to do more projects. We are also always focusing on our big projects, and for that we try to rely on international collaborations and partnerships. And we are also opening our doors to invite and to usher new collaborations with students and with emerging countries to develop new technologies that are needed here in the region and all over the world. So I'm going to try to not take too much of a time, but nope. If you have any questions directly to any of these points, please do.
Thank you very much, Danilo. It's a very impressive portfolio which you have established in all these years, and also, let's say, what you mentioned, your cooperation with various space developing nations. It's very impressive. Thank you. And we go to the next one, and that is Masami Onada, who has got a double role over here. She is and the director of the JAXA office in Washington, but also she is the chair of the client committee of the IF. Masami.
Yes, Peter, thank you for the introduction. So I have 2 hats in this position. So as the chair of Cliodon committee, it sounds a little bit like a dinosaur. It stands for the committee for liaison with international organizations and developing nations. So we thought it is apt to have this GNF at this conference, and I'm so glad we could make it a reality, and thank you especially for our partner UNOSA, Hazuki and Peter, for trying very hard to make this happen. Taking that hat off now, I would like to talk a little bit about the Japanese Space Agency, JAXA, and this theme space technology for developing nations. This is the third panel in this conference now for me. The first one was co-evolution of ecosystems. I was like, oh. And the second one was gender gap, and I was like, oh no. And the third one, technology. Oh, now I'm relaxed. So all of us were here. We can talk forever about technology. But particularly with relationship working with developing nations. And this has been some time since we've been trying to do this. As all of you know, it's not a straightforward matter. It's not just about technology, it's about what the user needs, and also how sustainable you can make the program once it is there, because we often start out by partnering, for instance, in this slide with JICA, I think a lot of you may know. So it's an international cooperation agency of Japan. And we cooperate with them because they basically have the ODA and funding and also all the structure to work with developing nations between Japan and the developing nations, which as a space agency, JAXA does not have. So we have a partnership, a formal one, under an agreement. And we have, by now, quite a few, I think a dozen or more projects in various parts of the world. And one of them, a very successful one, we often introduce is JJ-FAST that we're showing here between Brazil and many, many other countries now. To use satellite data for monitoring deforestation. So that is a web-based system using JAXA's satellite, basically, and to monitor tropical forests in, this says 78 countries. I think it's even growing now. And every 1.5 months and release deforestation data. So some of you, if you're in commercial remote sensing, you would think this is not so much, but to make this readily available to the country's needs, it's been proving very successful. Second slide, please. Yes. So this one also is my second and last slide. Kibo Cube, that some of us have been throughout this conference mentioning, with also many Latin American countries and also African countries, Paraguay, Brazil, and also with Kenya and many others. We have worked to deploy microsatellites from the International Space Station. And also this whole thing becomes a training program, and for some of the countries it has been their first ever satellite. So that brings them basically to become a spacefaring nation themselves, and I think it's a very big one step. Always when deploying the satellite, we have an event in Tsukuba Space Center inviting the ambassador of that country and broadcasting it to the world, and it is a very successful event each time. Microsatellite for a big space company or a big space organization might seem really micro, but for the country that's for the first time doing it is a major, major event. So, and then we work with Asian countries through the APRSAF, the Asia Pacific Remote Regional Space Agency Forum, and we've been doing this for more than 2 decades now, and it's, as in the picture shows, every time quite high level, 500 or so participants pre-COVID have been happening, so we are happy to continue this. Also a proud member as the Japanese government, the Artemis Accords, and we welcome others to join our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Masami. I think, let's say, you've quite clearly explained, let's say, that how this double role works. Let's say both from as a share of client and let's say the involvement of JAXA into this activity. So I think this has been very clear. Thank you. We go to the next one, and that is Hazuki Mori. Hazuki Mori works for the United Nations of Outer Space, and she's there the expert on the space exploration section. So.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hazuki Mori. I work for the Space Applications section of the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. I really wish all of my colleagues were able to be here because I heard so many exciting discussions in the past sessions. And to try my Spanish, I would like to say, buenos días a todos. Es un placer estar aquí. Thank you. So, first of all, before we go into space technology, I wanted to introduce the current status of the Latin American and Caribbean states. So, as you can see here, out of the 33 countries, we have 16 countries that have launched a satellite. The reference goes to the United Nations Register of Objects launched into outer space. We have 12 countries that have a national space agency. Actually, on the UNUSA website, we have a page that is for space agencies. However, all the space agencies in the Latin American Caribbean states are not there. So if your agency is not there, please contact me, please contact UNUSA. We would be happy to put you on our website. And we have 16 member states of COPUIS, the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. The meeting will take place in June, in a few weeks. And as you can see, the ratification status of the international agreements. You can see out of 33, there is only 14, 13, 12, 7, 3. So we would like to see more participation from the region, as has been explained in the various sessions beforehand. These treaties are really the baseline of national space policy programs and, of course, space technology development. Next slide, please. And I would also like to mention that space is becoming an important factor in the United Nations system itself. So as Veronica was explaining, we have the Space 2030 agenda. It was adopted in October last year. And it emphasizes that space tools, so space technology and applications, are highly relevant for the attainment of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 goals and its various targets. And in the agenda, it really promotes and supports the use of space technology to enhance worldwide access to data and broadband technologies. It really commits to strengthening international cooperation, and of course, it aims to enhance capacity building, education, and training in space science and applications. And here, I would like to introduce the many different capacity buildings that we are doing, especially in the Latin American and Caribbean region. So as Masami was explaining, through the Kibo Cube program that we work with JAXA, we deploy 1 new CubeSats from the International Space Station. And in this region, we have worked with the team from Guatemala to deploy their first satellite, Quetzal-1. And right now, there are 2 teams that are in development. One is SICA, the Central Integration System. A team from Costa Rica, Honduras, and Guatemala are working on the deployment. And of course, we selected a new team, the team from UPAEP in Mexico, and they will be working to deploy their CubeSat as well. Besides that, a team from Bolivia and Costa Rica have been working with us to conduct experiments at the Bremen Drop Tower in Germany. It is microgravity experiments. Besides that, I have too many on the list actually. There is another team from Peru that is doing biological experiments. It will be tested on the Chinese space station, hopefully late this year or early next year. And besides that, Veronica was also mentioning we have the UN Spider, which is focused on disaster management. So we have been working with various different countries to help with the technical administration of that. And also, we have been working in the space law and policy section as well. We have been doing technical advisory missions to, for example, Chile, to help with their policy and law. I have not been able to cover all the different activities that we do at UNUSA, but as you can see here, we have various projects that cover many different fields: space for women, space law for new space actors. We have a new program called Space for Persons with Disabilities. We work with economy, youth, sustainability, water. Basically, we're working on a lot of things, and we are here to really help everyone in the region, to help the whole world. So please let us help you. Please reach out to us. Let us know what kind of activities that you're interested in. We're always interested in partnerships. And yeah, we really hope to make the world a better place and, of course, contribute to the SDGs through space. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Azuki. This is very impressive, the list of activities which are undertaken by UNOSA. very, very impressive. Then we go to our last speaker, let's say at least for the first round, and this is Gustavo Cabrera Rodriguez. Gustavo is the Mexican ambassador to this new Latin American and Caribbean Space Agency on the ratification process. So, Gustavo, the floor is yours. If you can take into account the timing, because we have got we're running a little bit late. Okay, there we go.
Thank you. Greetings from Mexico to all attendants. Yesterday, I present the labels of my laptop. Today, I present the socks with aerospace themes. This is very important. The uniform, the socks is aerospace themes. Well, begin with the Mexico. It's very important the next. The importance of being on time in the great technological and scientific transformation of the world. We can and want to be in everything that is technological and scientific advance, everything that suits Mexico. Next, please. Well, Mexico have in this moment presented 3 great projects for exchange and other countries, emerging countries. It's very important exchange experience. With Artemis, it's necessary to strengthen actions for the civil protection of the population of our regions, especially in the face of the increase in the frequency and intensity of hurricanes and another hydrometeorological phenomena. For these objectives, and after Mexico accession to the Artemis agreements, the importance of the projects with NASA called Aztec Sat constellation, Omeka Climate Change Observatory, and with the Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency of that country is highlanded. NOAA is the initials. Start out with useful satellite system for civil protection, GOES and GoNetcast Americans, among others. Next, please. Another theme is early warning system. Within the framework of the launch of the GOES-T satellite from the facilities of the U.S. Space Agency, NASA, for acronym in English, in Cape Canaveral, Mexico will strengthen the current space education agenda for our country with emphasis on protecting the population from disasters. With information from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, of the that country and NASA, Mexico explained that the GOES satellite system helps protect more than 1 billion people who live and work on the mountain. The next, please. The third project is Colmena UNAM, and the last panel, the Dr. Gustavo Medina Tanco is the leader of Project Colmena. The mission, which will land on the moon next June or July, is made of 5 small robots that will place it on the lunar surface. The relevant is, in this project, participate with the participation of the 200 students and who apply basic science to transform reality. This is very important for the next generation. Next generation, human resources is the best investment. Please, next. This is the 3 projects, very important exchange. In the next slide, I have 3 questions. The first question is, why did the Aztecs name their main works Pyramid of the Sun and Pyramid of the Moon? The second question, do you know where the statues of Easter Island and Chile look? The third question, did the pre-Hispanic peoples of Latin America develop calendars for agriculture? The next, please. Well, the answer is observation of space and stars. We will continue to watch to improve human life on Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gustavo. The clicker doesn't work very well, and it's okay. Let's say this is now controlled from your side. Yeah. Okay. Let's now it's perhaps time. Let's say to involve you. Let's say in a few questions. So for those who have come in late, let's say could you please take a picture out of this for this QR code, and then you will see a certain number of questions, and you will be asked, let's say, to give your indication of what is the most relevant on these questions. There are either 4 or 5 answers. The information will be available after the event, so we cannot show it now, but we will certainly publicize this during the information after the conference. So if you have got this code, let's say, photographed, then you will see the following questions. Yeah, could you go to the next one, because this one doesn't work anymore. Good. So the question is, what is the best way forward for developing space technologies in the region? And then you see here the four questions, the 4 answers. So could you please select within the Slido tool, could you select the one which you consider as the most relevant? We will take about 10-15 seconds, let's say, for the answer to be given. So it's the cooperation with the other space agencies, or should you develop your own space programs through ALSA, or promote the capacity and building and space education, the STEM, or supporting the startups and the SMEs? Yeah. Okay, if you have selected those answers, then we go to question number 2. Question number 2 deals with the where should the priority be for the space technology programs in Latin America and the Caribbean countries? Again, 4 possible answers. Should the emphasis be on the application programs? Should the emphasis be on the exploration programs? Or on science with astronomy and the solar system and fundamental physics? Or should you put really the priority on the R&D in the dedicated centers of expertise within the ALSA countries? So there are 4 distinct possibilities, and of course probably it will be good to say, okay, I would like to select 2, but the purpose of this Slido tool is that you give the priority which you think it should be given. If that is okay, then we move to the 3rd question. If you could, yeah, question number 3. Which are the biggest challenges for this Latin American and Caribbean space agency? Let's say in particular in the field of the science, the space technology developments. Is it the shortage of public funding? Let's say earlier session this morning, we understood that there's only 500 million euros for all the LC countries, which is a very modest budget. Is it the lack of the technical expertise, the education, the infrastructure? Is it the risk-averse entrepreneurial spirit? Let's say, perhaps we've seen some examples that this may not be the case here in Latin America. Is it the cooperation with ALSA and the other space agencies, or is it the lack of a space policy? That's it. Those are the 5 possibilities. And if everybody has selected, and contrary to what I just said, let's say then that you should now be able to see the results in your own tool if everything works okay according to the secretariat. So perhaps, can I see this? What the results is on my? Sorry. Could you the polls? Yeah. Where do I see the results? Yeah. I should the results over here? Sorry? Stefano is the master. Yeah, now there the master is coming, the master of the Slido tool. Give him a big round of applause. Yeah. Yeah, no, okay. You vote for me. Okay, very good. So let's on the first question, what is the best way forward for the developing space technologies in the region? The vast majority is to promote capacity building and the space education, so the STEM, which fits in with what was mentioned this morning by Matthias and others, that education is a very important element to create a vibrant future for your space activities. So 43% have voted for this one. And then we go now to the next one, Stefano. To the next one. So that was the question, where should be the priority for the space technology programs in Latin America and the Caribbean countries? And this is an overwhelming majority for the application programs. It's 59%, with R&D in the centers of expertise in the LC countries with 36%. 5% on science and 0% on the exploration programs. And it said we had 24 responses, so this is quite clear what the preference is. And then we go to the third question, and that which are the biggest challenges for Latin America and the Caribbean space technology programs? Shortage of public funding. Now, that is quite clear, that with 65% shortage of public funding. And what we've seen this morning is that with 650 million people living in Latin America and the Caribbean, with a total space budget of 450 million euros or dollars, let's say more or less the same, let's say, which is 2% of the NASA budget in comparison, and it's 6% of the ESA budget. So it's extremely low, so that there is a shortage of public funding, that is considered as being the top priority, that is crystal clear. And also on this one, there were 24 replies. So thank you very much for your participation in this one. Then we go to the let's say once again, if you have got questions, please also use the tool. The Slido tool you can use for the poll and for the questions. And now I would like to go, let's say, to the next part. Let's say, and that is a few questions which I will ask as a moderator. And I would like to start then with Danilo. Danilo, let's say for a successful space program, the use of the latest technologies is essential. This can be achieved by nationally funded technology programs or through cooperation with established space agencies and industrialists. And I believe, let's say, that you've explained that this is very much the case inside Brazil. What are the views for the future on the Brazilian Space Agency?
Yes, well, concerning the international collaboration, we have been very good at that, especially in transferring technology into our ecosystem and developing it further. Now our main challenge is actually to transfer the technology from the governmental institutes into the industry that is growing in Brazil. So now we have another type of infrastructure to build in order to enable them to develop this high-level technology that we already need to apply in our current projects. So probably the main challenge will be this distributed capacity, and how do we enable the interoperability between the technology that is being developed in a way that we can get the best results from all of these building blocks.
Okay. Very clear. Masami, the Cliodin has worked with developing countries on space cooperation, and can you give some examples of successful programs?
Yes, with Cliodin or with...
Cliodin or JAXA.
Okay. So first of all, okay, I can do both. So Cliodin, is an IAF committee, by the way, for those who are not familiar. IAF has about, I think, 40 administrative and technical committees. CLIADON is one of the administrative committees that is quite long-standing, and originally it was set up for the UN USA to collaborate through the IAF with the space community. And now that the times are a bit changing, whereas it was more the Cold War situation back then, now we have emerging countries, and I think that's the biggest changing environment in the IAF or the space community, so that we bring in a lot of developing nations which are in fact doing space programs or trying to, their own. So it's not just on being on the receptive side, but actively trying to be involved. And so therefore the UN IAF workshop that we have been holding, usually the 3 days before the actual IAF starts on Monday. This year it's a bit different, so look at the website to find out which days it is. I think it's Friday, Saturday, is it? Yes, in September. So we invite developing nations to be there, present their programs, and then to attend the whole IAC, and to also discuss with space agencies, industry, how to develop their own space programs. And we would like to continue that. And also there is a way for developing nations participants to apply through UN USA to be funded to come to this event and then to stay on for the IAC. So this is something that has been yearly very successful for, I think, 2 decades or more now, and it's really a successful case. Now, JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, we have been working with our satellite programs for disaster monitoring, also the KiboCube and BIRDS program for microsat deployment, and also knowledge development through that. And maybe as a successful case for Latin America, a little bit to learn maybe with the APRSAF, has a structure where we have working groups that are actually working on technical programs under the APRSAF program for space science, space ISS utilization, for space applications, Earth observations data utilization, and so forth, in many, many areas. And we try to put together JAXA or other countries' technologies all together to find out how they could be used in the region. So there are many, many successful cases, and we would be happy to discuss further. Thank you.
Thank you, Masami. Question to Hazuki. What are the lessons learned from UNOSA for the capacity building projects?
Thank you for the question. So the lessons learned, I would say I would pick up 3. One is the importance of providing a path that supports the applicants, that supports the people who join in the program, that they can be self-sustained. I think self-sustained, the ecosystem was discussed a lot in the past sessions, but we provide a path. For example, in the Access to Space for All initiative, which is a capacity building program we have where we partner up with space agencies, with industry to provide experiment opportunities on ground and on board the ISS, for example. In that initiative, we have 3 different tracks that start from not complicated skills, and there's a development path where you can grow from easier skills to more complex skills. So we're trying to provide a path so that everyone can go through and gradually develop themselves. Another important part of another lessons learned is providing opportunities and support to learn all the different steps of a space program. So when you talk about small satellites, it's not just the development of the space technology of the CubeSat itself. There are other administrative things that you would need to go through. For example, you would need to coordinate with the ITU and the frequency allocation, and of course with UNUSA for the registry of the space objects. So we're trying to provide support for the whole whole, the whole path of doing a space program. And the last lesson learned, an important part, is the significance of outreach. We have seen so many programs that have been successfully able to reach out to their populations, to their governments, and with the understanding of the population and the government, and of course inspiring young generations, it generates more interest into space, which leads to more interest in STI, science, technology, and innovation, but also to investments. There were some examples of the universities that joined the initiative that with the interest, with the success case, they were able to get more funding for their departments to buy new parts of infrastructure, buy a new machine to do more things in space. So we believe, as I said, the importance is providing a path, providing more support for the whole path, and the significance of outreach. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Veronica, what will your government do to create and stimulate the creation of new startups in Ecuador?
Thank you. As I mentioned before, during the last year, the new government tried to address most of the issues related to promoting investment in general, and I think in particular for SMEs, and also with a gender perspective. And but I think it's important that we can work more on this agenda of competitiveness to promote innovation, but also we have to work in the issue of education and the relationship between academia and business. And if you allow me, I think we also need to address the issue of the gender approach, because in Latin America we still have many problems for the entrepreneurship related to women. There's a report of the IBD that shows that in Latin America the credibility of women at the time that we ask for a loan or a credit for a business is very very low compared to the men. So I think it's also a matter of access to the funding and the possibilities to development business. Thank you.
I believe this is very important. This is a very good point that you mentioned. Let's say, Gustavo, let's say within ESA we've got the language aspect. Let's say the two official languages, which is French and English. But within ELSA, you will have, if I understand it correctly, you will have 4 languages. You've got Spanish, you've got French, you've got Portuguese, and you've got English. How will you go about this to understand each other when you talk about space technology and common projects? Tell us a little bit about this, because this must be a relevant point.
Thank you, Peter. It's very important, the communication. The first problem, one relative problem, is all countries of Latin America and Caribbean speak principal 4 language. The more countries of continental is in Spanish, IT is French, Brazil Portuguese, and the English is another countries, well, Iceland, Caribbean is principal. Well, the first communication is how the difference or how more interpretation the same concepts. Technical concept is very important, and well, I need to define in the short time what is the language official technical in time space. English maybe, well, is a language, principal language in another countries, the development countries important in space. Well, this is the next discussion. Now is exchange with and the 3 or 4 language, and accepted the English is the more common speak the countries. It's very difficult. I need 3 strategies for development, strategic for communication. multilingual is in the short time, unilingual is in the medium time. This is my comments.
Okay, that will be interesting to see that further development, Gustavo. Fuad, as a Cosmos Space Agency, what type of activities are you implementing to enhance the space technology utilization and capacities in your country?
Thank you very much for your question. So, when it comes to space technologies, I believe in Azerbaijan, when Cosmos was just established, the awareness was very low, space awareness. So, and also in the region. So we managed through a very short time, like 7 to 8 years, to create the demand for space applications, and there was already an interest from R&D institutions and from academic organizations, and we already witnessed that there are even ideas and new startups appearing on the market which are interested in developing various applications. So it was very interesting to see, but from the other perspective, since we are a space agency, we became a space agency last year, we understood that we should make a good environment for those institutions, academic and research, as well as the new startups, to get funding, and not only the public funding, which is mostly the case for emerging countries, but also the private funding, because we think that with the support and the guidance from the space agencies, it is possible to implement the necessary regulatory frameworks in the country, which would support both the private investors and the startups. For example, at this stage, we see that a lot of new ideas and a lot of young engineers, they prefer to move somewhere else in order to establish their startups, because they believe they will get the funding, they will get the access to the more mature ecosystem, space ecosystem, and we are now actively working on developing the necessary regulatory framework. We are working on the space law to make sure that we treat those ideas and initiatives differently from any others. Especially in the modern times, as I said previously, space is more accessible for young engineers, and we have seen that on our experience. After working at Cosmos for a few years, many engineers, they dream about starting their own company, and they have some bright ideas, but there is not enough support from the regulatory framework. So we are working very intensively on developing that necessary regulatory framework for those startups, and actually for supporting the investments as public and private. Thank you.
Okay, let's say that fits in very well within the question which has come in from the audience, and I think I would like to ask this to the three representatives from Latin America. Because the question it is that there's a huge issue of technology transfer is the retention of manpower following capacity building programs due to low budgets. So in other words, let's say if there's insufficient budget within also, let's say within the Latin American countries, you run the risk that engineers go to the US, go to Europe, go to elsewhere. So perhaps let's say that we would ask them this to the three persons from Latin America, starting with Danilo. Let's say, how do you go about this? What do you see? The risk? What are the solutions?
Yes, actually that's very interesting, because it almost happened to me. I'm a mechanical engineer by formation, because we didn't have any space engineering in Brazil in the early 2000s. And I had to go to France to do my studies, and I lived abroad for a very long time, and I decided to come back home because I wanted to, but most of the people I knew out there, they didn't come back home. And that's actually a successful initiative that we had. Now we have 7 national space engineering courses. So we are trying to keep the talent inside, and we have 3 postgraduate courses as well. And these engineers, they stay home, they study together, and they start to develop new ideas. So it's the ecosystem. If it's healthy, I believe people will stay. And then the funding might come later. You know, sometimes you stimulate the demand with the product, or sometimes it's the inverse. So I believe that if we give a good ecosystem to develop the new ideas, people will stay, and then we get to keep our human power.
Veronica, could you also say a few things about this? That's the brain drain that's because of insufficient funding that engineers will go abroad?
For example, in my country, I think is a big issue because all the technical careers are more difficult, and even in my family, I have two brilliant cousins that they had to study outside, but they decided to come back, and still I think is a hope that the Ecuadorians would like to come back and invest in our country. But I think this is a big challenge for our countries, the funding for education and in research. But that's why I think it's important to promote cooperation, because in that way we can overcome the lack of funding or the lack of capacity inside the countries, especially in the cooperation between our region. Thank you.
Perhaps that's the last one then, Gustavo. Let's say that from the perspective of Mexico, but also from the perspective of the future of ALCE. Let's say, is there a way that you're going to tackle this issue of how to keep the expertise and the engineering capacity inside the ALCE countries?
Yes, it's very important. The next generation of young students is very important. The concept, the cooperation. Now is development consumers. I need formation, creation, science. This is very important for human resources. The capital budget, economic money is important, and best important is a human resource. This is the project. This is the next line for the future. In Mexico, it's a project. The next generation, it's education, more specialty. I need doctors, yes. I need engineers, yes. Well, need more special professionals in different themes, including space is a priority.
Good, thank you. We're reaching the end, and let's say I'm sorry. Let's say for the people who have asked let's say other questions, but we are this timer over there is alarming, giving alarming signals. So what I would like to do is to end up, let's say, with a short round of key takeaways. And perhaps we go now from the side of Fuad. If you can say in 20, 30 seconds, what is the key takeaway which you would like to mention to the audience on the aspect of space technology for emerging countries?
I would say that it is extremely important nowadays for emerging countries to be part of technological development, and there should be big support from the space agencies in those countries in promoting those different initiatives. And basically, the idea is that space technology should not be only something accessible to incumbent and developed nations, and the emerging nations should not only be the consumers of those technologies, but they should also become the generators of new ideas. And I believe that is possible, and we should all be trying to achieve that. And the role of space agencies is very incremental in that. Thank you.
Gustavo, the key takeaway from you.
I need the more public politic defined to space. what is the next step? Constructions, the companies, or common information? The data systems is professional, interesting for development of countries. And exchange information is the unique way for the development countries. The emerging countries, I need more construction infrastructure and information. The exchange between countries is the priority.
Veronica?
I would like to say that I think it's important that the developed countries look at developing countries. I think they have to take the risk to come to invest in our countries, and also to see the value of our human capital, because I think we have a lot to offer. We have great opportunities, but we need cooperation to build something important for all of us, and also to overcome the development gaps. Thank you.
Clear. Hazuki?
Yes, as it has been discussed through this whole session and the past sessions, every country has different history, backgrounds, and the culture. Everything is different, and the national context has to be respected. And I believe for a successful program, trained human power, access to infrastructure, there are some things that is necessary. So at UNUSA, we really believe that actual hands-on capacity building opportunities are important for the actual students, the actual people to really move their hands, actually understand what's going on. So we really hope to provide more hands-on capacity programs. And besides that, we hope to promote the importance of space, not only in the space industry, but of course to reach out to the different industries and of course in the UN system, so that there will be more understanding towards the importance and the impact of space. And last but not least, of course, the importance of international cooperation. It has been discussed all through, but there are so many things we can do if we do it together. So I hope that, that concludes my speech.
Okay, let's do it together. Excellent. Masami?
As we keep saying in this conference, I think it's talent. And to meet talent, the best place is IAF and IAC, I think. And to come to IAC, try to contact Cliodon or UN IAF workshop, as I've been explaining, and we'll give you the opportunity to do so. And we really want to see you at IAF and IAC.
Yep. Perhaps, let's say, Hazuki, you would like to mention one thing on, let's say, on what's going to happen on the UN-IF workshop.
Maybe if you can show the slides. So
yeah, let's say that's because that's important.
Yeah, as Masami has been explaining, we will be conducting the UNIAF workshop 2 days before the IAC starts. So this year IAC starts from Sunday, so we will be having our event on Fridays and Saturdays. It is currently open for abstracts and registration. The theme is Access to Space for All, Bridging the Space Divide. It's in line with the whole theme of IAC this year. And the deadline is until the 30th of June. We really hope to be able to connect with all of you, and we will be able to, we do have some resources to be able to fund people from emerging nations to come to our event and of course participate in the IAC afterwards as well. So please, please disseminate the information. We will be waiting for you in Paris. Thank you very much.
Then we conclude with Danilo. You've got the last words.
Yes, I promise to be brief with a personal example and echoing what has been said in this conference. I am a project analyst, so I work a lot with technology development, but more than half of my time is dedicated to education and capacity building. So I believe that shows our views with the Brazilian Space Agency and how we understand that talent is the main issue here. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, let's say, for all panel members for an extremely interesting panel session. I enjoyed it myself very much, and I hope, let's say, the audience did too. So perhaps, let's say, may I ask a little round of applause, let's say, for the panel members.
Thanks a lot, Peter, for the initiative and for the great moderation, and a big thanks to the to the speakers. And a special thanks to Hazuki and to Masami for pointing out the importance to be part at the IEC in Paris in September. Please come forward for the group picture. And for all of you, thanks for your attendance here and for your interest. Now lunch is served downstairs, so please be our guests and go downstairs. We will convene here again with the next session, with the last plenary of today and of this conference, at 2 o'clock sharp.